Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm 12 Kyle. Check this out. On this episode, what I want to talk about is my first whip, my first car, my first ride, my first set of four wheels. If you've been following the podcast, I've talked about my first crib, I've talked about my first job. So it's only right that I share with you some stories and memories about the first set of wheels that I had. Um, the thing that's interesting about cars and young men, particularly young men in the South, uh, it's a rite of passage, at least in the era in which I came up. In the 90s, yeah, it was a rite of passage for you to get a car. Um, and the reason why I specified the South because, like, there was no public transportation where I grew up. Um, I'm not like Baylor. I didn't grow up in LA. Um, I didn't grow up in New York City. I didn't grow up in Colorado. I think they got public transportation in Colorado. Um, but yeah, shout out to Baylor. Um, but yeah, it was in the South, like that was the thing. Like if you can ask a cat like King Germ from the Frocast, like when did he start driving? Uh, he'll probably tell you relatively young. Um, Cats that came up in our era, you know, especially if you grew up in the South, you probably you might, depending on where you live, you may have been driving actually before you got a driver's license. Um, I want to say, I think the first time that I actually drove a car and it was just down the street, I might have been like 13, you know, um, because like that was the thing, like to drive, everybody wanted to drive. Like, and what was interesting was, as a father, um, my sons, like, particularly my oldest two, who are who are much older now, but when they were younger, um, they weren't like interested in driving, or at least it didn't appear. And I mean, like they're 22 and 19 now at the time of this recording, but like when it was, I guess when it was time for to get their license, they kind of got to it eventually, but it wasn't like something that was a priority. I mean, like for us, and again, it makes a difference when you got Uber and Lyft and MARTA. You have means of getting around, but you know, back in my day, you grew up in a small town like Florence, South Carolina. I mean, like if your mom didn't drop you off, if you didn't drive, you probably had to walk. And if you didn't walk, like, like I wasn't about to be walking. Like it's some things that just against, like I wasn't walking. Like, let me rephrase that. I would walk around the corner to like Jay Fresh's crib. I walked to Zell's house. I might walk to Derek's house, which, and all of these cats, they lived around me. But outside of that, I ain't walking nowhere. Me walk? Um, Maybe a bike. Maybe I might get on a bike, but even the bike, I wasn't like I knew kids that rode bikes to school. Like I wouldn't ride. And my high school, really, relatively speaking, isn't that far from my house. Um, but no, I wasn't doing that. Why? When I can get in the car, get there even quicker. Um, so yeah, growing up in Florence, I mean, like having a car was paramount, and being able to have your own car was even bigger and better. And I know quite a few of you listening know exactly what I'm talking about. Like the first time you got the keys, that was something special. Like that was a rite of passage for you. Um, and then it became even bigger and better for you personally when you had your own car. Because here's the thing, like I got my drive. I started, like I said, I think the first time I drove, I was probably like 13, maybe 14. Um, my first, I got my driver's license at 15. So by the time I was 16, I was going like everywhere. And that, I think that had to do with the times and what you could, the age limit that you could be, in the state of South Carolina. But I ain't care. Like once I once I got my license, it was on. And here's the thing that most kids couldn't figure out, that I figured out relatively quickly. Your mom and dad or grandma or whomever, they don't want to take you to places that you want to go. They don't. Especially as you get older and you start moving around. You get to like middle school, high school, you start having activities and games and dances and stuff that you want to go to. They don't feel like taking you. They don't want to take you. They don't want you to. They know that you need to go because you need those social activities and you need to socialize with other kids. But they ain't trying to take you. They are not trying to take you to the mall on Saturday. They're not trying to take you to Tommy's house, for the party. And they're not trying to bring you to Kyle's house for the pool party. So or like if you were going to hoop somewhere, like we used to hoop a lot. So like, nah, they wasn't trying to take you over to Travis crib so you can hoop. So it's like, what other choice do you have? So once you get your license, that's when it becomes different, because now you can drive. Or even better yet, if they need to go to the grocery store, they need you just to pick up some cigarettes. Guess what? They ain't trying to drive. So the first thing they'll say, hey, can you run to the store and get me a soda? Can you run to the store and get me some cigarettes? Can you run to the store and get me some milk? That's it. And they'd send you with $5. You go get the milk, come right back. But that was cool because you got a chance to drive, right? And so, like I said, it was a rite of passage for kids in that era. I can't really speak to the other eras. And again, I know that it's different for now, because now, depending on where you live, you can pretty much get around without actually having to have a license or a car. If you live someplace like New York City, you don't need a car. I always laugh at my homegirl Shelly Shell, because she'll be like, "Oh yeah, I drove my car this month once." Like, I wish, but I don't live in a place where that is. And I mean, I guess I probably could if here in Atlanta, but the reality is there are places to go, and there are a lot of places to go, and I don't particularly want to depend on public transportation. But nonetheless, this takes me back to my first whip. Um, if you look at the cover art, my car looked exactly like this. The only difference was it was light blue. It was like a UCLA blue. Shout out to Baylor. He's a UCLA fan. So yeah, it was, that's what it was. That was my car. It was, my first car was a 1989 Nissan Sentra, sitting on Dan Marino's. Yeah, it was a stick shift too. Stick shift. I'll talk about that in a little while. My mom gave me the car. She bought the car and she gave me the car because, in her words, I don't want to keep running up and down the road to Orangeburg to come pick you up, which that's where I went to school, in Orangeburg, South Carolina, at South Carolina State University. And that makes sense because by this time, I'm like, and this was like, I got this car in 93. So I'm like a red shirt sophomore. Um, you know, I'm not at that time, I'm not coming home as much, but you know, when it was time for break or anything like that, my mom had to come get me. And, sometimes she had to work. Sometimes she just didn't have the time. Well, I'm not going to say she didn't have the time, but, Orangeburg is an hour and a half from Florence. So it's not a long ride, but it's not, it's a ride that if you don't have to make, you're not going to make. Right. So her thing was like, I'll get you this car and, it's a reliable car. You'll be able to go back and forth between, you can come home when you need to come home, so forth and so on. and you can, ride around school. And the only thing she told me when she gave me the keys to the car, she told me a couple of things. She said, keep gas in it, uh, don't drive around with a lot of people in the car because cops will pull you over. That hasn't changed. and the last thing she said, don't let anybody drive your car. Period. I don't care who it is. Don't let anybody drive your car. All right. Fair enough. That's pretty easy to remember. So yeah, that's the reason why she gave me the car. And it made sense because again, she didn't want to come back. She didn't want to have to be coming back and forth. And also I was at that stage where, man, I'm playing football. I'm, kind of popular. I needed a car. And don't get me wrong. I mean, you see a picture of this car. It's a 89 Sentra. It wasn't the hottest whip on South Carolina State's campus, but it was mine. The car was light blue, as I mentioned, UCLA Bruin blue. That's what I used to call it. On the inside, it had cloth seats. I mentioned it was a stick shift. It had a pretty decent, nice, factory speakers. I'm not really one for a bunch of loud music, but I'll put it like this. If I rolled the windows down and I was bumping, I don't know, the Chronic or 36 Chambers riding through campus, you could hear me if you're outside. But yeah, it was cool. It had a tape deck. And subsequently, what I decided to do was add a CD player. Now, here's what I did. I took my portable CD player, got a cord, plugged it into the cigarette lighter, and I was able to play a CD in the car, which was huge because at that time I was transitioning from having cassette tapes to CDs. And obviously, if you're listening to a CD, the listening is even better because now you don't have to fast forward through a song. You don't have to rewind a song. You just at the touch of a button. So technology was there. And to be able to put a CD player, a Walkman, or whatever you want to call it, just your own personal compact disc and play it through the car was dope. It was so live. Like I said, nice car. It rode well. I had no problems, man. I love that car. That car was smooth, man. I mentioned it was a stick. I learned how to drive a stick shift from my dad. My dad taught me, and honestly, it didn't take long for me to learn how to drive a stick. It might have taken, a day and a half, maybe. And once I learned that, I was cool. And that was actually before my mom bought the car. So once my mom bought the car, I was like, oh, this is even doper. Now I got a stick shift. I'm on the campus. I'm hot. I'm on South Carolina State University. I mean, what could be better, right? So I had some epic trips in that car. Just to name a few. Obviously the trips home were always cool. I remember a couple of times Mo came home with, Mo is from Darlington, South Carolina. And Darlington, for those of you who don't know, is the next town over from Florence. So you guys have heard Mo on this podcast. That's my boy. Our trips home were fun. Just having a car was dope, man. Cause I mean, like I could go anywhere. I used to go to Columbia a lot. Columbia is the capital of South Carolina. It's maybe about a half hour from our campus. So that was dope. I enjoyed that tremendously. I remember one weekend I drove to DC, and I drove to DC following my boy Russ. Russ, again, one of my best friends. So I'm following Russ to DC. We went to DC. We went to some go-go club in DC that weekend. Man, we had a ball. DC in the 90s. Man, listen. Oh my gosh, I had so much fun in that Go Go Club. Shout out to my boy B Cox from the Vault Classic Music Review Podcast. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. DC Go Go Clubs were the shit. And so I went to DC, but here's the funny thing. The car ride to DC was a long ride to DC. And DC's probably at that, I think we got in about like 7 hours, 7.5 hours. The thing about the trip was I was packing my car, getting ready to leave on a Friday to go to DC. I'm packing, I got everything. And I left my car door open, right? Which I shouldn't have. I left my car door open. I went upstairs just to get something and I came back downstairs. Well, when I came back downstairs, my compact disc player was on the seat. It was missing. And I'm about to take this trip to DC, and now I realize somebody has stolen my compact disc player. Now, nothing else was taken out of the car. The car was at the time was parked right in front of our dorm, Mitchell Hall. And so I'm like, yo, man, who stole my CD player? And so I'm asking around, hey man, did you see anybody by my car about 5 minutes ago? No, man, I ain't see nobody. I am furious because again, nothing else was taken out of the car. I had money in the car. I had clothes in the car. Nothing else was taken but that CD player. And I was like, damn. So now I got all of these CDs. And of course, it was only just one disc. So you could only play one disc on it at a time. But now I got all these CDs. Now I got to go get my tapes. And I'm mad because, I mean, like, it's a hurting feeling for somebody to steal something from you, right? So I'm shitting bricks. I'm bad. At this point, I almost don't want to go to DC, but we're right. You know, it's a road trip, so we getting ready to roll out, and so I got to ride all the way to DC, listening to tapes, and then when I got tired of the tapes, I had to listen to the radio, and the radio sucked, and I was just mad. Come to find out, when we get back to Orangeburg on Sunday, one of my teammates said, hey, I know who has your compact disc player. And I'm like, who? They said, oh, Rod Walker has it. As it turns out, Rod Walker, who is a comedian / football player on our team, decided to take the CD player because he was, quote, teaching me a lesson. Now, Rod Walker at the time, I think, was a freshman. He was a true freshman. Man, I wanted to kick Rod Walker. And yes, I'm using his full government name because I love Rod Walker. But at the time, I wanted to kick his ass. And anybody knows Rod Walker from South Carolina State University knows that he plays a lot, especially back then. And so I go to his room and he was like, yo, KD, he's like, man, I didn't know you were going to DC. He said, I thought you were just going up the street. He's like, so he said, you shouldn't have left your door open like that. And we laughed about it, but I was mad, but you know, I was happy to have it back. I just hated the fact that I had to drive 7 hours listening to tapes and the radio. But yeah, that car took me everywhere. That car, I bought that car to Freaknik. Yes, indeed, I brought that car to Freaknik. I love the idea of driving to Freaknik, especially when I did not know in 1994 what Freaknik was. I just heard about it. I really couldn't explain to my mom what a Freaknik was, but I went in 1994, and me and about 500,000 people, no lie, showed up in Atlanta. There's an episode in the archives. If you have not heard it, as soon as you finish listening to this episode, go back and listen to it. It's called Freaknik 94. So I go to Freaknik, and here's the thing about Freaknik that they did not tell me about. There's traffic. And I mean a lot of traffic. And how much traffic? A gazillion cars are in Atlanta at the time, right? And as I mentioned a little earlier, the car's a stick shift. The last thing that you want to do is be in traffic in a car with a stick shift, because can't do much. It's stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. And it's annoying when you have a stick shift. Well, we got to this. We were going to. I think we were going. Were we trying to go to Piedmont Park? No, that wasn't Piedmont Park. We were trying to go to another party or something. And I got to this little section over by Freedom Parkway, downtown. Coming if you're familiar with the city, it's coming up. You come up under the Jackson Street Bridge, and you make the left turn. I was making a left turn on, I want to say that's Boulevard. I think that's Boulevard. Anyway, so I'm where the traffic on that particular street was like, I mean, like we literally just to get to a light, it took me 45 minutes. I mean, traffic wasn't moving at all. I mean, like girls were getting out of cars, dudes were getting out of cars, walking around, girls on top of cars twerking. I mean, it was just a bit, but it was so frustrating because like I'm sitting here and I was on a hill, right? It's a stick shift. I literally catch a cramp in my left calf while sitting in traffic. But yeah, that car, man, we went everywhere. We had some great memories. Um, I loved even the memories of just driving my boys to the club because like in Orangeburg, we would party a lot on Thursday nights and then Saturday nights. Didn't really party too much on Friday nights. But Thursday nights and then Saturday nights. And here's the thing, like I didn't drink when I was in college, right? I didn't take my first drink until I was like 26, 27. And even now I'm not much of a drinker, but I didn't drink in college. So automatically I was the designated driver. So like if we went to a club, I was always driving. Like my boys would come and check, my teammates come and check. Hey, Katie, you going to this party tonight? Yeah, okay. Well, I'm riding with you. Because they knew if they were riding with me, they were going to get there safe and they were going to get home safe. Because they know I wasn't going to drink, I wasn't going to smoke or anything, right? And so like I just remember just driving them around, like, and it was like me and these dudes, these big 6'2", 240-pound dudes, and they're drunk and they're like telling me their life story. And I'm, Katie, man, we love you so much, man. You're just a great person, man. We gonna be friends for life, man. We gonna be boys for life. I'm like, shut up. But it was always funny, man. I mean, being a designated driver, I didn't mind at all. I didn't mind at all. And another thing that I used to do was that was a lot of fun for me. I started dating this girl, right? And we used to ride around in the car and just listen to music and we'd talk. That was really, really, really special to me. And it was a special time in my life. But yeah, me and this girl, man, we used to ride around and we used to just listen to music. And the cool part about it was, you know how fellas, like for some, not for all, but for sometimes, you know, you got a girl and your girl gets in your car and you can't necessarily play the music that you want to play. You got to play something softer or something slower, whatever like that. Like, nah, she could get in, I could be bumping Ice Cube. And she's singing and rapping word for word. I could be bumping Wu-Tang and she's singing and rapping, bumping, and it's word for word. And she was so cool and her vibe was so cool that, you know, we just really, we bonded on a lot of different levels, but we definitely bonded over music. And, when she would get in the car and, you know, I want to slow it down, I put that My Life on for Mary J. Blige and just let it just ride. And so we used to spend a lot of time riding around, going to the store, going to get ice cream. Sometimes we go to Columbia to shop. Sometimes we just go to the record store. We go different places, just, you know, in the car, always listening to music, always talking. That was our thing. Speaking of girl, that was my girl, right? And so remember earlier when I said My mom, the third thing she said, the third and final thing she said, and there's a reason why she made it the final thing. She said, "Don't let nobody drive your car." Well, I let someone drive my car once. Uh, I remember it like it was yesterday. Uh, I think did we have practice? I can't remember if we had practice or not. Maybe we had practice. We had practice and we got out of practice and I was, back at the dorm. And I distinctly remember. Oh, no, no, no. I think we was living off campus then. I think, yeah, okay, I'm off campus. My girl asked me, "Hey, are you doing something tonight?" "No, I'm not doing anything." "Why, what's up?" "Can you take me and my friends to this party?" No, I don't feel like going to a party. I'm done for the night. I'm chilling. "Are you sure?" "Yeah, I'm sure. I'm not going anywhere." So again, I'm shutting down the idea of even remotely taking you somewhere. So my girl says, "Well, can I drive your car?" And I flash back to what my mom said, rule number 3. Don't let nobody drive your car. Don't let nobody drive your car. All right. Sure. Here you go. Gave her the keys and she's driving the car. Now, I don't know if I ever asked her if she could drive a stick. I think I knew that she could. Nonetheless, give her the keys. She drives. She goes off. She goes, picks up her girls. They go to the club. So on the way back from the club, what had happened was she was turning a corner. And I guess she turned the corner too quickly. And if you're turning a corner too quickly at a certain speed, and I think she misjudged her turn and she hit the sidewalk. So when she hit the sidewalk, she jerked the car and then the wheel was wobbling. So she stopped the car. Now we've got a problem. She has now gotten into an accident where she has hit the curb and from what she could see, destroyed the tire. And it's not her car. And she has to tell her boyfriend that she has wrecked his car. So she calls me, hey, what's up? I don't know how to tell you this, but I got into an accident in your car. What? I said, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine. Well, what happened?" I was riding with the girls. We were coming back from the club, and I turned the corner on blank street and I hit the curb. I was like, "Oh, okay. So what happened?" And she was like, "Well, I hit the curb and now the wheel is bent or something." And I was like, "Well, where are you?" And she told me where she was. So I was like, so I got a ride and got to where she was. And in my mind, I'm thinking, but maybe it's not as bad as she made it out to be. It was bad. The axle was broken on my 1989 UCLA Bruin Nissan Sentra. I am shocked. First of all, I was happy that she and her friends were fine because she might have been going, I don't know, 15, 20 miles an hour when she hit that curb, but it could have been worse. They could have, hit somebody or something like that. So I was glad that she and the girls were okay. But I was pissed. And I tried not to let on that I was pissed, but I was pissed because one, now my car is wrecked And two, I have to tell my mom. And three, how am I going to pay for this? So she was, very apologetic and everything, but just my girl. So it's like, I'm not going to, break up with her because she wrecked my car. But my mom distinctly told me not to let nobody drive my car. And I let somebody drive my car who was my girl, and she proceeded to wreck my car. And then I had to kind of figure out, like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Because I got to get this fixed. And can I get it fixed without her knowing? Because here's the thing. She wouldn't know anything because there was no police report or anything like that. But I had to try to figure out how to get it fixed without her knowing. So got the car to a little body shop or whatever like that. And the dude took a look at it. Oh, yeah, it's actually got to be replaced. Wheel got to be replaced, blah, 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 blah. How much is it? Oh, it's $315. And I've got $27.87 in my pocket. And the person with $315, well, she don't have it, but I'm sure she could probably get it, is my mom. I can't call her. So I'm like, damn. So I'm scrambling. And I'm mad because this is my first car. Like, I can't believe you wrecked my car. You wrecked my car. Like, I can't believe this. And I think I got mad. I think I yelled at her or something. And, she was upset that I yelled. And it was what it was. But you guys got to understand, I was heated. There's no excuse. And I mean, technically, I can't fault her, really. I'm mad that it happened, but I can't fault her because I could have easily said no. I could have easily said, hey, I'll take y'all and I'll come back and pick y'all up. But I wasn't trying to do it. I was lazy. So I talked to Mo. Mo said, hey, I know a guy. And the statute of limitations up? It's been past 7 years, right? Okay. So Mo put me in contact with a friend of the program. I'll just put it like that. Friend of our illustrious program at South Carolina State University. And the friend of the program gave me 315 beans to get it fixed. I got it fixed, and my mom never knew what happened. And if you're wondering what happened to the girl, at the time of this recording, we've been married almost 22 years. And you know what's funny? I don't think my mom ever found that out until like maybe 5 or 6 years in our marriage. I think my mom came in town one time and we went out to dinner, and I think I told her. I can't remember, but I think I told her. But my mom didn't find out till like years later. And I mean, by that time, she had already had a daughter-in-law and a couple of grandkids. So I mean, what was she going to do? Spank me? But yeah, that car was important, man. That car, it was a life changer for me. It was like I said, a rite of passage. It was special, and we got a lot of great memories together. And for those of you listening, when that time comes for you to purchase a car for your child, think about me and think about the things that you're going to tell your child, and tell them rule number 3: don't let nobody drive their car. That's important. And hopefully they won't be like me. They'll listen to you. That's going to do it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for checking out this edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. From time to time, we drop bonus episodes on Sundays at midnight. I'm 12 Kyle. I'll catch you guys next time. 5,000.